Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
I was sprawled out on my couch, sipping a cold beer and flipping through channels on a rare day off, when my phone buzzed with Claire's name lighting up the screen. I almost didn't pick up. Divorce does that to you. Makes you hesitant about every call from your ex. But something told me to answer. Her voice was soft, pleading, the way it gets when she wants something big. "Noah, it's about Jasmine," she said, and I felt my stomach tighten. Jasmine, her younger sister, the wild card of the family, always in some kind of mess. Claire went on about how Jasmine lost her job, fired from a bar gig for mouthing off to the manager, and now she had nowhere to go. She's family, Noah. She just needs a little help to get back on her feet. I listened, my thumb rubbing the label off the beer bottle, while she laid it on thick about how tough things were for Jasmine, how she'd changed this time, how it'd mean so much to her if I said yes. I didn't want to hear it, not really. I'd just gotten my life back together after the divorce, started liking the quiet of my new routine. The second apartment I owned, a small, modern place across town, was my safety net, a way to bring in extra cash since the split left me stretched thin. I'd been planning to rent it out, had even started drafting the listing. But Claire kept talking, her voice tugging at that old part of me that still wanted to keep the peace with her, even after everything. "Just for a little while," she said. "Rent-free, until she finds something. Please, Noah." I closed my eyes and pictured Jasmine, tattooed, loud, always with a smirk like she knew something you didn't. She'd crashed on our couch a few times during our marriage, leaving behind empty wine bottles and cigarette butts, promising to clean up, but never doing it. I didn't trust her, not one bit. But then I thought about Claire, how she'd take it if I said no, how she'd spin it to her family that I was the cold ex-husband who wouldn't help. I sighed, long and heavy, and muttered, "Fine. Temporarily. That's it." Claire squealed through the phone, thanking me over and over, saying I wouldn't regret it. I already did. I hung up and stared at the ceiling, wondering what I'd just signed up for. The apartment was mine, fully paid off with years of savings, and I liked having control over it. Giving it to Jasmine felt like handing a kid a loaded paintball gun in a white room. But I told myself it'd be okay. I'd set rules, keep an eye on her, make sure she didn't overstay her welcome. That's what I thought, anyway, as I finished my beer and tried to shake the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I'd meet her tomorrow, hand over the keys, and lay down the law. It was just a favor, I kept telling myself, a short-term thing to help Claire's little sister get by. I wanted to believe it'd be simple, that Jasmine would stick to her word for once. Deep down, though, I knew better. She wasn't the type to play by anyone's rules, least of all mine. Still, I'd said yes, and now I had to deal with it. I tossed the empty bottle in the recycling bin and headed to bed, hoping I hadn't just made a huge mistake. The quiet of my house felt heavier that night, like it was warning me about the chaos I'd invited in. But I pushed it aside, locked up, and told myself I'd handle it. I always did. I pulled up to the apartment the next morning, the engine of my truck humming as I stared at the building, my building. It was a crisp day, the kind where the air feels clean and sharp, and I'd been rehearsing what I'd say to Jasmine all the way over. I grabbed the spare keys from the glove box, stepped out, and adjusted my jacket. She was already there, leaning against the front door with her arms crossed, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Her hair was dyed some new shade of purple, and she had that same old smirk, like she was doing me a favor by showing up. "Hey, Noah," she called out, giving a little wave. I nodded back, keeping my face neutral. "Hey, Jasmine, let's get you settled." We walked up the stairs together, her boots clomping loud on the metal steps, and I unlocked the door to let her in. The place smelled like fresh paint and lemon cleaner. I'd had it spruced up for the rental listing that wasn't happening now. She dropped her bag on the hardwood floor and spun around, taking it all in. "Nice spot," she said, nodding like she approved. "Thanks for this, seriously. I owe you one." Her voice had that charm she could turn on when she wanted, smooth and warm, but I'd heard it too many times to buy it completely. I set the keys on the counter and faced her, crossing my arms. "Yeah, about that. We need to go over some things before you get too comfortable." She raised an eyebrow, but she didn't argue, just leaned against the wall and waited. I took a breath and started laying it out. "This is my place, Jasmine. I'm letting you stay here for free, but there's rules. No guests without checking with me first. No trashing the place. Keep it clean, no damage. No loud parties, no blasting music at all hours. And no freeloading. This isn't permanent. You need to be looking for a job, figuring out your next step. Got it. She nodded quick, her eyes flicking to the side for a second before coming back to me. Yeah, totally. I get it. No problem. Her tone was easy, agreeable, but there was something behind her smile that made my gut twist. I'd seen that look before, back when she'd promised Claire she'd pay us back for a loan, then vanish for weeks. Still, I didn't push it. Good, I said. I'll be checking in now and then. You need anything, you call me. Don't go through Claire. She laughed, a short little burst, and said, What? You don't trust my big sis to relay a message. I didn't laugh back. I just like things direct. Keeps it simple. She shrugged, like it didn't matter, and started unzipping her bag, pulling out a tangle of clothes and a pair of sneakers. I watched her for a minute, trying to read her, but she was already humming to herself, acting like this was her place now. All right, I said, heading for the door. I've got work. Lock up when you leave. She waved without looking up, and I stepped outside, pulling the door shut behind me. The whole drive back to my house, I kept replaying it in my head. She'd said all the right things, nodded in all the right places, but it felt too easy. Jasmine wasn't the type to just fall in line. She never had been. I remembered the nights she'd crashed with us during the marriage, how she'd swear she'd be gone by morning, then still be there a week later, eating my cereal and leaving dirty dishes in the sink. Claire always defended her, said she just needed time, but I'd seen the pattern. I turned up the radio to drown out the doubts, telling myself I was overthinking it. She'd promised to respect the space, and maybe, just maybe, she meant it this time. The apartment was worth too much to me to let her screw it up, financially and otherwise, so I'd keep a close eye on her. I'd stop by unannounced, check the locks, make sure she wasn't turning it into a circus. As I pulled into my driveway, I felt a little better. I'd set the rules, drawn the line. If she crossed it, I'd deal with it. For now, I'd give her the benefit of the doubt, let her prove me wrong. But that smirk stuck with me, lingering like a warning I couldn't quite shake. I woke up the next week feeling lighter than I had in a while, the sun spilling through my blinds and painting stripes across the floor. Work had been steady, blueprints piling up on my desk, clients happy with my designs. And I'd even started texting Ivy, this quiet woman I'd met at a bookstore a month back. She was different from Claire, softer, with a way of listening that made me want to talk more. I was sipping my coffee, thinking about asking her out for real, when my phone pinged with a message from Jasmine. Hey, just saying thanks again. Place is great. Left some cookies on your porch. I blinked at that, surprised. I stepped outside, and sure enough, there was a little plastic container with chocolate chip cookies, still warm. I took a bite. Damn good, actually, and texted her back a quick, appreciate it. Maybe Claire was right. Maybe Jasmine was finally getting her act together. Over the next few days, things stayed calm. I drive by the apartment after work sometimes, just to check, and it looked fine from the outside. No trash on the steps, no loud music spilling out. Jasmine kept answering my texts, too, short updates like, found a job lead, or cleaned the kitchen today. Nothing big, but enough to ease my mind. Claire called me one night, her voice bright. See, Noah? I told you she's turning a corner. She's really trying this time. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Yeah, seems like it. Cookies were a nice touch. Claire laughed, proud as hell, and I let myself smile. It felt good to think I'd done something right, even if it was just giving Jasmine a chance. I started loosening up after that. Work kept me busy, long hours sketching out a new office building, and Ivy and I were texting more, swapping book recommendations and dumb jokes. I'd still swing by the apartment every few days, but I stopped gripping the steering wheel so tight when I did. One afternoon, I even knocked on the door, just to say hi. Jasmine answered in sweatpants, her hair up in a messy bun, and the place smelled like pine cleaner. Hey, didn't expect you, she said, stepping aside. I glanced around, couch was neat, no dishes in the sink, even a little vase with flowers on the counter. Just checking in, I said. Looks good. She grinned, brushing her hands on her pants. Told you I'd keep it together. I nodded, feeling a flicker of relief. Keep it up. That night, I told Ivy about it over the phone. She'd asked how my week was going, and she said, sounds like you're giving her a real shot. That's kind of you. Her voice was warm, and I liked how it made me feel, like I was doing something decent for once. The next week rolled by the same way. Jasmine texted me a picture of a job application she'd filled out, some retail gig, and I saw the apartment lights off early most nights when I drove past. Claire kept singing her sister's praises, and I didn't argue. I was starting to think I'd misjudged Jasmine, that maybe the chaos I remembered was just her being young and dumb, not who she was now. I focused on my own life instead, drew up plans for a client's dream house, took Ivy to a quiet dinner where we talked for hours over pasta and wine. She liked my stories about architecture, and I liked how her eyes lit up when she talked about books. It was easy, simple, and I hadn't had that in a long time. By the end of the month, I was almost proud of myself for saying yes to Claire's favor. The apartment was fine, Jasmine was behaving, and I was moving forward. I'd still check in, keep my guard up just enough, but I let myself relax into it. I'd sit on my porch some evenings, eating one of Jasmine's cookies. She dropped off another batch, and watched the sunset, thinking things were finally falling into place. It was a good feeling, one I wanted to hold on to. I didn't know then how fast it'd all unravel, how that calm was just the quiet before everything went sideways. But for now, I let it be, trusting it'd stay steady. It was a Thursday night, late, and I was bone-tired from a day of revisions on a tricky project, some rich guy's vacation house that kept changing shape every time he called. I'd left a stack of blueprints at the apartment a while back, ones I needed for a meeting the next morning, so I grabbed my keys and drove over, figuring I'd be in and out. The streets were empty, the air cool, and I was half asleep behind the wheel, just wanting to get home and crash. I parked outside the building, climbed the stairs, and fumbled with my key in the lock. The door swung open, and I froze. There was a guy on my couch, shirtless, in nothing but a pair of ratty boxers, sprawled out like he owned the place. He had a beer in one hand, the TV blaring some action movie, and he barely glanced up when I walked in. "Who the hell are you?" I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. He sat up slow, squinting at me like I was the intruder. "Yo, chill, man. I'm Tyrell, Jasmine's boyfriend." My brain took a second to catch up. Boyfriend? I heard footsteps then, and Jasmine came out of the kitchen, a bag of chips in her hand, wearing an oversized t-shirt and a look like she'd been caught, but didn't care. "Noah, hey," she said, casual as anything. "Didn't know you were stopping by." I stood there, the keys still in my hand, feeling the heat creep up my neck. "What's going on, Jasmine? Who's this guy, and why's he in my apartment?" She rolled her eyes, popping a chip in her mouth. "This is Tyrell. He's been staying here a couple weeks. He had nowhere to go. What was I supposed to do? Let him sleep on the street?" Her tone was light, like it was no big deal, but it hit me like a punch. "A couple weeks?" I repeated, stepping closer. "You didn't think to tell me? We had an agreement. No guests without my say-so. You remember that, right?" She shrugged, leaning against the counter. "Don't be so uptight, Noah. We're family. I figured you'd be cool with it." Tyrell snorted from the couch, finally muting the TV. "Yeah, man, relax. It's not like we're trashing the place." I looked around then, really looked. There were empty cans on the coffee table, a pizza box shoved under it, and a pile of dirty socks by the armrest. The air smelled like stale smoke and grease. My jaw tightened. "This isn't a flop house, Jasmine. I let you stay here rent-free, and you pull this? You don't get to figure anything. You ask me." She crossed her arms, her smirk fading. "Okay, fine, I should have said something. But Tyrell's good people. He's not hurting anything." I pointed at the mess. "That's not nothing. And he's not on the lease. He's not supposed to be here at all." Tyrell stood up then, stretching like he was bored, and I got a better look at him. Tall, wiry, with a tattoo snaking up his arm. "Look, dude, I'm not trying to cause problems. Jazz said it was cool." I turned back to her. "You don't get to decide that. This is my place." She sighed, loud and dramatic. "God, Noah, you're making this a whole thing. He's my boyfriend. We're together. What's the big deal?" The big deal was everything. The lie, the disrespect, the way she acted like my rules didn't matter. I grabbed the blueprints from the shelf, my hands shaking a little from the anger bubbling up. "The big deal is you broke our deal. Fix it, Jasmine. He's out, or you both are." She laughed, short and bitter. "You're serious? Over this?" I didn't answer, just headed for the door. "I'll be back in a few days. He better be gone." I slammed it behind me, harder than I meant to, and stormed down the stairs. The drive home was a blur, my mind racing. I trusted her, let her in, and she'd turned around and done exactly what I'd feared. I should have known, Jasmine never changed, not really. By the time I got to my place, I was fuming, pacing the kitchen, wondering how to handle it. I thought about calling Claire, but she'd just take Jasmine's side, tell me I was overreacting. I sank into a chair, staring at the wall, knowing this was just the start of the mess I'd let into my life. I couldn't sleep that night after finding Tyrell on my couch. His smug face burned into my head like a bad dream. I kept replaying Jasmine's shrug, her "don't be so uptight" line, like I was the one out of line for caring about my own damn apartment. By morning, I was still mad, but I had to get to work. Those blueprints weren't going to pitch themselves. I dragged myself through the day, nodding at clients, sketching lines, but my mind was stuck on what I'd walked into. I decided to give it a few days, let Jasmine think it over, maybe realize she'd screwed up. But deep down, I knew she wouldn't. A week later, I got a call from Mrs. Levy, the nosy but sweet old lady who lived next door to the apartment. I'd given her my number once, asked her to keep an eye out since she was always peeking through her curtains anyway. "Noah, honey," she said, her voice all crackly through the phone, "I hate to bother you, but there's been noise over there." Loud music, shouting, late into the night. I thought you should know. I gripped the phone tighter, thanking her before hanging up. Noise complaints. Perfect. I checked the utility bills online that afternoon. Water and electric had spiked, way more than one person could use. Tyrell wasn't just crashing. He'd moved in, and they were living it up on my dime. I drove over that evening, my stomach churning with every block. When I got there, the bass from some hip-hop track was thumping through the walls, loud enough I could feel it in my chest before I even reached the door. I knocked, hard, and waited. Jasmine opened it, her eyes half-lidded like she'd been drinking, a grin plastered on her face. "Noah. Hey, come join us." Behind her, Tyrell was lounging with two other guys I didn't know, all of them with beers, a haze of smoke hanging in the air. The place looked like a frat house, empty bottles, chip bags, a busted lamp tipped over in the corner. "What the hell is this?" I said, stepping inside. She waved a hand, giggling. "Just a little get-together. Relax." I didn't relax. "I told you no guests. No parties." And Tyrell was supposed to be gone. She rolled her eyes, leaning against the wall. "God, Noah, you're overreacting. It's not a big deal." Tyrell piped up from the couch. "Yeah, man, live a little." I ignored him, locking eyes with Jasmine. "This stops now. They leave, or I'm done playing nice." She straightened up, her grin fading. "You're seriously gonna kick me out over a couple friends?" "It's my place," I said, my voice low. "You don't get to decide what flies here." She huffed, crossing her arms, but didn't argue. The other guys started grabbing their stuff, muttering as they shuffled out. Tyrell stayed put, smirking like he wasn't going anywhere. I left before I said something I'd regret, but I was shaking by the time I got to my truck. The next day, I called Claire. I didn't want to, but I needed her to know what was happening. "Jasmine's got Tyrell living there," I told her. "Parties, mess, the works. I'm not okay with it." She sighed, long and tired. "Noah, she's just having fun. You're being dramatic. Tyrell's harmless." I clenched my jaw. "Harmless doesn't trash my apartment or run up my bills." "She's breaking every rule," I said. Claire's tone sharpened. "She's my sister. You can't just throw her out. She's got nowhere else." "Then you take her in," I snapped. "I'm not her landlord or her babysitter." She hung up on me, and I tossed the phone on the counter, pissed but not surprised. That night, I met Ivy for coffee. She could tell something was off, said my hands kept fidgeting with the mug. I spilled it all. Tyrell, the parties, Claire's excuses. She listened, quiet, then said, "Noah, who are you protecting here? Them or yourself?" It hit me hard. I'd been bending over backwards for Claire's family, trying to keep the peace. But what about me? My place, my rules, my life? I was losing all of it to Jasmine's entitlement. I thanked Ivy, kissed her cheek, and drove home with my head clearer than it had been in days. They weren't just guests anymore. They were taking over. And I was done letting it slide. I couldn't let it go after that night. The image of Tyrell smirking, Jasmine's flippant, "Relax," the way my own apartment felt like enemy territory. I spent the next few days at work, burying myself in designs, but every free minute, I was stewing. Ivy's words kept echoing in my head. Who was I protecting? I'd given Jasmine a chance, more than one, and she'd thrown it back in my face. By Saturday, I'd had enough. I needed to see the place again, make sure they hadn't turned it into a full-on squat. I grabbed my keys after lunch and drove over, the afternoon sun glaring off the windshield. When I got to the building, it was quiet. No music, no shouting, which should have felt good, but instead it made me uneasy. I climbed the stairs, fished my key out of my pocket, and slid it into the lock. It didn't turn. I jiggled it, tried again, but nothing, just a dead click. My heart sank. I flipped the key over, checked it was the right one, but I knew it was. I'd used it 100 times. They'd changed the locks. My own damn locks on my own damn apartment. I stood there, staring at the door, feeling the anger boil up from my gut. I banged on it, hard, 3 times, and waited. Footsteps shuffled inside, and Jasmine opened it a crack, peeking out like I was some stranger. "Noah," she said, her voice fake surprised. "What's up?" I held up the key. "Why doesn't this work? Did you change the locks?" She opened the door wider, stepping out in a tank top and shorts, Tyrell looming behind her in the living room. "Yeah, we did," she said, like it was obvious. "The old ones were janky. Felt safer this way." I took a step closer, keeping my voice steady. "You don't change my locks without telling me. This is my place. Give me the new key. Now." She hesitated, glancing back at Tyrell, who just shrugged. Then she sighed and pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, handing it over instead. "Here," she said. "We figured since you're all worked up about rules, we'd make it clear how this works." I unfolded it, and my eyes narrowed. It was a handwritten list, titled Visiting Expectations for Noah, in her messy scrawl. I read it, line by line, and felt my blood pressure climb. Number 1. All visits must be scheduled 48 hours in advance. Number 2. No discussions about rent, bills, or money owed. Number 3. Respect our privacy. No entering bedrooms or personal spaces. Number 4. Consider contributing to furniture upgrades. Couch is old. There were more, 10 rules total, each dumber than the last. I looked up at her, the paper shaking in my hand. "What is this? You're locking me out of my own apartment and handing me a rulebook." She crossed her arms, smirking. "It's our place now, Noah. You don't live here. We do. If you want to visit, those are the conditions." Tyrell chuckled from the couch, watching me like it was a show. I stepped inside, ignoring her attempt to block me, and saw the state of it. Dirty dishes piled in the sink, trash bags by the door, a dent in the wall where something had hit it. "Your place," I said, turning on her. "You're squatting. You don't pay rent, you don't own it, and you sure as hell don't get to make rules." She bristled, her smirk gone. "We're not squatting. You said I could stay. I'm family. Family doesn't pull this," I shot back. "You don't get to take over my life because Claire begged me to help you." Tyrell stood up then, stretching like he was ready to step in. "Easy, man. No need to yell at her." I pointed at him. "You don't talk. You're not even supposed to be here." I turned back to Jasmine. "You've got no right to change my locks or write this garbage. I want the new key, and I want this fixed." She glared at me, arms still crossed. "We'll think about it. But you don't just barge in anymore. That's how it is." I crumpled the list in my fist, my voice low. "You're done here. I'll be back, and this better be sorted." I walked out, slamming the door, my head pounding. They'd locked me out, physically, legally, whatever, and acted like I was the guest. I sat in my truck, staring at the building, knowing I'd let this go too far. It wasn't just about the apartment anymore. It was about them thinking they could run me over. That was ending, one way or another. I drove home from that locked-out mess with my hands tied on the wheel, the crumpled rules list sitting on the passenger seat like a taunt. My head was spinning. Anger, disbelief, a little bit of shame for letting it get this bad. Jasmine and Tyrell had crossed every line I'd drawn, and that smug look on her face when she handed me that paper was the last straw. I pulled into my driveway, cut the engine, and sat there for a minute, staring at nothing. Ivy's question from the other night came back. Who was I protecting? Not me. That's for damn sure. I'd been tiptoeing around Claire's feelings, Jasmine's chaos, and now I was locked out of my own place. Enough was enough. I went inside, grabbed a beer, and paced the kitchen, figuring out my next move. They weren't on a lease, never had been. So legally, they were trespassing. I'd given Jasmine permission to stay, but not like this, not with Tyrell and their little takeover. I decided right then, they had 1 week to get out. I wasn't asking anymore. The next morning, I drove back over, early enough that the streets were still quiet. I wanted them groggy, off guard. When I knocked, Tyrell answered, bleary-eyed in a stained t-shirt, looking like he'd just rolled off the couch. "What now, man?" he mumbled. "Where's Jasmine?" I said, pushing past him. She stumbled out of the bedroom, rubbing her eyes. Hair a mess. Noah? It's like 7. What's wrong with you? I stood in the middle of the room, arms crossed, and kept my voice calm. Too calm, maybe, because it made her stop and stare. You've got 1 week, I said. Both of you. Pack your stuff and get out. I'm done. Her mouth dropped open, then snapped shut. You're kidding, right? Do I look like I'm kidding? You changed my locks, trashed my place, and handed me a list of demands. You're not tenants, you're squatters. 1 week, or I'm calling the cops. She exploded then, her voice shrill. You can't do this. I'm family. You said I could stay. She grabbed a lamp off the table, one of those cheap ones I'd left there, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, ceramic bits scattering across the floor. Tyrell stepped forward, chest puffed out. You better watch it, man. We got rights. I'll sue your ass. I didn't flinch. Go ahead. You've got no lease, no proof, nothing. This is my property, and you're trespassing. Try me in court. I'd love to see it. He glared, but he didn't say more, just hovered there like he was waiting for Jasmine to tell him what to do. She was pacing now, hands in her hair. You're such an asshole, Noah. Claire's gonna lose her mind over this. Good, I said. Let her. I'm not here to make her happy anymore. I turned and walked out, leaving them fuming in the wreckage of their own mess. My phone rang 10 minutes later, Claire, of course. I picked up, bracing myself. What the hell, Noah, she yelled. Jasmine's crying her eyes out. You're kicking her out? She's my sister. I kept my tone flat. She locked me out of my own apartment, Claire. She's got Tyrell living there, throwing parties, breaking everything. I gave her a chance, she blew it. She's got nowhere to go. You can't just, I can, I cut in. It's my place. She's not my kid, and neither are you. Figure it out with her. She started shouting something about family and loyalty, but I hung up, my hands shaking a little. I'd never talked to her like that, not even during the divorce, but I was past caring. I stopped by a hardware store on the way home, bought a new set of locks, just in case, and spent the afternoon sketching at my kitchen table, trying to calm down. The quiet felt good, solid, like I'd finally taken something back. I knew they wouldn't go easy. Jasmine's tantrum and Tyrell's threats were proof of that. But I wasn't backing down. I'd call a lawyer if I had to, get an eviction notice rolling, whatever it took. That night, I texted Ivy, told her what I'd done. She called me right away, her voice soft. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, and I meant it. Tired of being the only adult in the room, but I'm okay. She laughed a little, and it loosened something in my chest. I wasn't just drawing a line. I was taking my life back, one messy step at a time. The week after I told Jasmine and Tyrell to get out was a tense, quiet standoff. I didn't go back right away. I figured they'd drag their feet, make it as hard as possible, and I wasn't wrong. I spent my days at work, drafting plans for a new community center, and my nights with Ivy, who kept me sane with her calm way of cutting through the noise. She'd sit across from me at dinner, sipping wine, and say things like, "You've done what you can. Let it play out." It helped, hearing that, because part of me still felt twisted up over the whole thing, Claire's guilt trips, Jasmine's tantrum, the fact I'd let it get this far. By the 7th day, I drove over to see if they'd actually left. The building looked still from the outside, no music, no lights, and for a second I thought maybe they'd listened. I climbed the stairs, new locks in my pocket just in case, and used the spare key I'd kept from before they'd changed things. The door clicked open, and the smell hit me first, sour, stale, like old food and spilled beer. I stepped inside, and my stomach dropped. The place was a disaster. The carpet had dark stains, like someone had dumped a drink and let it sit. The kitchen counter was piled with takeout containers, flies buzzing around a leaking trash bag. The couch, my couch, was ripped along one arm, stuffing poking out, and the coffee table had a crack down the middle. Broken glass glittered near the wall where Jasmine had smashed that lamp. They were gone, but they'd left me a war zone. I stood there, hands on my hips, taking it in. Part of me wanted to punch something, but mostly I just felt tired of their mess, tired of cleaning up after people who didn't care. I pulled out my phone, snapped pictures of everything. The dents, the trash, the damage, just in case I needed proof later. Then I called a cleaning crew I'd used for past rentals, a no-nonsense outfit that didn't ask questions. "Can you do a rush job?" I asked the guy on the line. "It's bad." He grunted, said they'd be there tomorrow, and quoted me a price that made me wince. Next, I dialed a locksmith to meet me that afternoon. I wasn't taking chances with Jasmine sneaking back in. While I waited, I started bagging up the trash myself, shoving greasy wrappers and crushed cans into plastic sacks. The locksmith showed up an hour later, a wiry guy with a toolbox and a nod. "Rough tenants, huh?" he said, eyeing the chaos. "Something like that," I muttered. He swapped the locks in 20 minutes, handed me 2 new keys, and I tipped him extra for the speed. The cleaning crew came the next day, 3 women in coveralls who didn't blink at the mess. They hauled out the garbage, scrubbed the stains, and steam cleaned the carpet while I watched from the doorway, feeling a mix of relief and disgust. By the end of it, the place smelled like bleach and looked almost normal, though the couch and table were toast. I'd have to replace them, another hit to my wallet, but it was worth it to erase Jasmine's mark. That night, I sat down with my laptop and posted a rental ad. Short, simple, no room for freeloaders. 1 bedroom, newly cleaned, serious inquiries only. I wasn't messing around anymore. Within a day, I got a response from Dr. Layla Brooks, an ER resident moving to town for a hospital job. We met at the apartment, her in scrubs, me with the new keys, and she walked through it, nodding at the space. "Looks good," she said, no nonsense in her voice. "I'm quiet. I pay on time, and I don't throw parties." I almost laughed. After Jasmine, that sounded like heaven. We signed a lease right there, 6 months, rent up front. She shook my hand, firm and quick, and I felt a weight lift. Driving home, I thought about the mess I'd waded through to get here. The fights, the damage, the sleepless nights. It hurt, losing money and trust, but there was a strange peace in it too. The apartment was mine again, under control, with someone who'd respect it. I cracked a beer when I got in, sat on my porch, and watched the stars come out. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was drowning. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. A few weeks after Dr. Layla moved in, life started feeling steady again. The apartment was bringing in rent. My work was picking up. Clients like the community center plans and Ivy and I were getting closer, spending lazy Sundays reading together or cooking dinner at my place. I'd almost put Jasmine and Tyrell out of my mind. Like a bad chapter I'd finally turned the page on. Then my phone rang one evening, Claire's mom's number flashing on the screen. I hadn't talked to Linda in months, not since the divorce dust settled, so I picked up, curious. "Noah." Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. "It's Linda. I need to talk to you." My gut tightened. "Hey, Linda, what's going on?" She took a ragged breath. "It's Jasmine. She and that boyfriend of hers, Tyrell, they moved in here after you kicked them out. And it's a nightmare." I leaned back in my chair, pinching the bridge of my nose. "What did they do?" "Everything," she said, her words tumbling out. "They've taken over the house. Loud music all night, trash everywhere, friends coming and going. They changed the locks on my own doors. Noah said it's for security. I can't even get into my garage without asking them. And yesterday, Jasmine gave me this list." I sat up straight. "A list?" "Yeah," she sniffed. "Called it family guidelines. Says I can't have guests without their okay, can't touch their stuff, have to knock before going in the living room. It's my house, Noah. I'm 68 years old, and they're treating me like a tenant." I couldn't believe it, except I could. It was the same stunt they'd pulled on me, down to the damn locks and rules. "Linda, that's insane. What's Claire doing about it?" She sighed. "Claire's trying to keep the peace, but she's in over her head. Jasmine yells, Tyrell looms around like he's going to break something, and Claire just caves. I don't know what to do." I felt a flicker of pity for her. Linda had always been kind to me, even after the split, but a bigger part of me was mad. They'd enabled Jasmine for years, and now it was biting them. "I'm sorry you're dealing with that," I said, but I warned Claire. I went through the same thing, locks, lists, all of it. She didn't listen. Linda went quiet for a second, then said, "I know. She told me you tried to help, and she didn't see it. She feels awful now." That caught me off guard. "Claire said that?" "Yeah. She's been crying too, saying she should have backed you up." "But Noah, I'm begging, can you talk to Jasmine? Get her to stop." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. "Linda, I can't. I fought that battle, and it cost me a wrecked apartment and a chunk of cash. They don't listen, they just take. You need to call the cops or a lawyer, get them out legally." She started sobbing then, soft and broken. "I don't want it to come to that. She's my daughter." "I get it," I said softer. "But she's not acting like your daughter. She's using you, same as she used me. We talked a little more, her voice cracking as she thanked me and hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, feeling a weird mix of vindication and exhaustion. Jasmine and Tyrell hadn't changed. They'd just found a new target. Part of me wanted to call Claire, rub it in that I'd been right, but I didn't. What was the point? That night, I told Ivy about it over dinner, steak and potatoes, her chopping veggies while I grilled. She listened, her knife steady, then said, "Sounds like they're finally seeing what you did. Too late, though." "Yeah," I said, flipping the meat. "Way too late." The next day, Claire texted me. "Mom told you about Jasmine." "I'm sorry, Noah. I didn't get it before." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keys. I typed back, "I know. Hope you figure it out," and left it at that. I wasn't diving back into their mess. I'd clawed my way out once. Linda's house was a war zone now, locks changed and rules posted, and I could picture it. Jasmine smirking, Tyrell lounging, Claire wringing her hands. It wasn't my fight anymore. I turned off my phone, poured a drink, and sat on my porch, letting the quiet settle in. They'd made their bed, let them lie in it. The days after Linda's call felt different, like I'd finally shut a door I'd been holding open too long. Work was good. My community center design got approved, and the client shook my hand with a grin that made the late nights worth it. Ivy was over more, her books piling up on my coffee table, her laugh filling the quiet spaces. The apartment was steady too, Dr. Layla paying rent like clockwork, no drama, no mess. I check my bank account sometimes, see the deposit, and feel a small, solid win. But Claire wouldn't let it go. A week after her text, she called me, her voice tight and desperate. "Noah, it's bad," she said, skipping the hello. "Jasmine and Tyrell, they're destroying Mom's house. Holes in the walls, fights every night. Mom's a wreck, and I can't get them to leave. Please, can you do something?" I was in my kitchen, stirring a pot of chili for dinner, and I stopped, spoon in hand. "Claire," I told Linda, "I'm out. I tried helping Jasmine, and you saw how that ended. This is on you guys now." She groaned, loud and frustrated. "I know I screwed up, okay? I should have listened when you warned me. But Mom's falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it." I set the spoon down, leaning against the counter. "You fix it by stopping the excuses. Call the police, get a lawyer, evict them. They're not family doing this. They're leeches. I gave you the playbook. Use it." She went quiet, then said, "You really won't help?" "I helped enough," I said. "I lost money, sleep, and half my sanity bailing Jasmine out. You chose to defend her. Now it's your mess." She started to argue, but I cut her off. "Claire, I'm done. Good luck." I hung up, my chest tight but lighter somehow. I turned back to the chili, the smell of spices grounding me. Ivy walked in then, her hair damp from a shower, and slid her arms around my waist. "You okay?" she asked, her chin on my shoulder. "Yeah," I said, stirring again. "Just closing a chapter." She didn't push, just kissed my neck and grabbed bowls for us. That was the thing about Ivy. She didn't need me to explain every mess. She just stayed, steady and real. A couple weeks later, Linda invited me to a family dinner, her way of keeping things civil, I guess. I almost said no, but Ivy nudged me. "Go. Be polite, but don't bend." So I went, pulling up to Linda's house with a bottle of wine I'd grabbed last minute. The place looked rough, curtains half open, a trash bag on the porch, but I could hear voices inside, loud and familiar. Linda hugged me at the door, her eyes tired but grateful. "Thanks for coming, Noah." Claire was there, tense, stirring a pot of something on the stove. Jasmine and Tyrell were in the living room, sprawled on the couch, arguing over the TV remote. The air felt thick, like a fight was brewing, but I kept my face blank and handed Linda the wine. "Looks like old times," I said, dry enough to make her smile. Dinner was awkward. Claire barely looked at me, Jasmine shot glares, and Tyrell shoveled food like he hadn't eaten in days. Linda tried to keep it light, asking about my work, but Jasmine cut in, her voice sharp. "So, Noah, you happy now? Kicking me out, leaving us here?" I set my fork down, meeting her eyes. "I'm happy not cleaning up your disasters anymore." "You." She scoffed, but Tyrell smirked, leaning back. "Man's got no chill. Man's got his own life," I said, calm. Linda jumped in, changing the subject, but the tension stayed. After dessert, Claire cornered me by the sink. "I'm sorry, Noah." "Really? We're working on getting them out." I nodded, rinsing a plate. Hope it works. I mean that. She looked like she wanted to say more, but I dried my hands and stepped away. I said goodbye to Linda, ignored Jasmine's muttered jab, and left. Driving home, I felt the distance settle in, not cold, just clear. They weren't my problem anymore. I got back to my place, found Ivy curled up with a book, and sank onto the couch beside her. She looked up, smiled. How'd it go? Fine, I said. I'm there on my terms now. That's enough. She leaned into me, and I let the quiet take over. For once, it was mine to keep.